Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Shane Beamer, the South Carolina Gamecocks land a much needed commitment coming out of the transfer portal and former Alabama and Florida State linebacker Shawn Murphy. The reason you say much needed is there's not a lot of question marks that I have for this South Carolina roster heading into 2025. They've done a brilliant job keeping this young nucleus together heading into the 2025 year. But if there was that one position that, and a lot of the South Carolina fans, you guys have agreed in the comment section that one position where we look at and say, kind of some question marks heading into the 2025 year, it's probably the off ball linebacker spot. I think a lot of it has to do with when you lose guys like Debo and Demetrius Knight, Bam Martin Scott, a lot of linebackers that have played really good football for South Carolina, specifically in that 2024 year. We just didn't see a ton of the other linebackers play a lot of football for South Carolina because how good that position group was. Now, that's not me saying I don't like a guy like Fred Johnson, who is just a freaky dude that's going into year two and has garnered a lot of buzz for South Carolina going into year two. But you probably want some more, known commodities in the linebacker room as well. Shawn Murphy could be that guy. And I think what's intriguing about Shawn Murphy, he's going into year four, has not played a ton of football up until this point, but was a very coveted and talented kid coming out of high school. And this was one of those guys that every single program in the country was lining up at his door to have him come play for their program. He goes to Alabama, does not play a ton of football, goes to Florida State, was supposed to be kind of a plug and play guy at that off ball linebacker position, but deals with a lot of injuries in the 2024 season. I think the question is, can we get Shawn Murphy to come to South Carolina? Can we get him to stay healthy? And can we maximize this kid heading into 2025? If you get a healthy Shawn Murphy who is playing the football that we know he can play, I think he can be a very quality starting linebacker for South Carolina. But you got to stay healthy. You got to get that development. And to credit this Shane Beamer South Carolina staff, the evaluations out of the transfer portal, especially at that off ball linebacker spot, have been spot on. And so you look at Shawn Murphy and say, hey, if y'all like Shawn Murphy, I like Shawn Murphy too. Want to get into, a little bit more about Shawn Murphy, talk about South Carolina's approach regarding the linebacker position. Now, before we get into it, as always, and the South Carolina fans, it's been really fun talking this program the last couple of weeks. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys, whether we're talking the 2024 season, whether we're talking the portal, it's been amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It sounds like South Carolina starting to rack them in a little bit. And we talked about how that first week of the transfer portal was kind of quiet for South Carolina. I think a lot of the efforts in terms of roster building was keeping our good players on our football team heading into 2025. Now they focused into going adding some new additions. So we're going to have a lot of commitments to break down. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Let's get into Shawn Murphy. And again, this kid, he's 6'2", 230, can run really well coming out of high school. In terms of physical traits, Shawn Murphy does not lack them. Now it's just about him staying healthy and getting on the football field and putting those physical traits onto the football field. I'm okay with kind of taking a stab at a guy like Shawn Murphy who, yeah, it's not ideal that he has not played a ton of football going into year four of his college football career, but has 2 years of eligibility remaining, potentially another year with that injury year. A guy that you can get into the program and kind of see what he can provide to that off ball linebacker spot. Now, taking a look at South Carolina's approach to the linebacker spot, obviously Andrew Jones, they had committed to South Carolina, then he flipped to Ole Miss. I think South Carolina is being rather patient at the off-ball linebacker spot, which I don't necessarily blame them for doing. One, I think they feel more comfortable. Look, the staff knows more than us, and there might be a reason South Carolina is not getting super aggressive at the off-ball linebacker position. That might tell us about how they feel about a guy like Fred Johnson going into 2025. But I also think another conversation is right now you look at the current linebackers that have been in the portal, it's just not a very strong position group that's present in the transfer portal. You look at some other positions, wide receiver, really, really talented. Quarterback, not so much. The off ball linebacker spot has not really been a talent rich position, if you will, that's been available in the transfer portal. So what I think is happening here is we're just going to be patient. We're not going to go out and settle for guys that we don't like. Let's wait till the college football playoffs wind down. Let's wait to see if some other names present themselves in the portal. And if we feel like we need to address the position, maybe coming out of spring practice, we'll do so as well. But it's hard to blame South Carolina for not just going out and grabbing 4 off-ball linebackers, because I don't know if there's that many off-ball linebackers that would contribute to this South Carolina defense. Yes, you need to replace a lot of production from those 3 linebackers we just talked about, but you don't need to be desperate in terms of adding guys that you don't think can play for you. And so I think they did their due diligence with a guy like Shawn Murphy, probably talked about him in terms of the injuries and what he needs to kind of maximize what he can bring to the table. I trust the South Carolina coaching staff. They've been very good at evaluating these off-ball linebackers. Again, I think Debo, Demetrius Knight, and Bam Martin Scott were all transfer portal additions. I think Bam Martin Scott came from the JUCO ranks. They got a strong track record in evaluating, scouting off-ball backers and picking the ones they think can come in and play, and they've done a damn good job of doing it. I think Demetrius Knight probably the best example of that. We'll see where South Carolina goes from here. I certainly don't think it's time to panic at the off-ball linebacker position. Shawn Murphy certainly tempers some of those sentiments. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.